Welcome everybody to the June meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it. This was a pretty interesting book. I did make a couple polls, and I know we're a small group here, but if you would just indulge me so I can try this poll feature, I've not used it. So first thing I wanted to see is where are you getting the info you get about this book club? Do you get it from Facebook? Do you get it from email? Do you get it from Twitter? I haven't tweeted too much, but I did for a while. Or is there something else? Is there another way? So if you can show me that, that would be awesome. Hey, Anna. And so I think we've got almost everybody in. Oh, I didn't vote, but that might be it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, so most people from email and one from Facebook. That is interesting. I'm always curious about how much people are engaged with Facebook or how much other noise and stuff is going on Facebook, or if these posts, as much as I hate to say it, even if they show up, because it's hard to tell when you're not, just like with library, when you're not paying for posting, what actually is showing up. So, but I'm glad that somebody is, and I know that some of you do, but I'm also very glad to see email. There was a lot in the book about, communication, and certainly there was a ton in the book about social media. So here is another question. Did you get to read this month's book? So if you can just answer honestly, it's okay. If you didn't get a chance to read the book, it's no big deal. And I think, did I launch it? Is that one up? It didn't come up. Darn it. How do I do this then? Let me try this. More polls. This one. Why wouldn't it let me launch? Oh, did I not do the other one? Oh, end poll. Aha. Well, anyway, there's our results for that one. And for this small sample, 80% email and 2 on Facebook. And let me see, and then I stop sharing. Thank you for bearing with me as I play with this new feature. Here you go. So did you get a chance to read this month's book? If you didn't, again, no big deal. Certainly, I know we're all crazy busy, but all right, so we've got 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's this other one that's messing things up. So some did, some didn't. So we'll go through the book and we'll do a little recap. But certainly there's some things I know that we can talk about that relate to library marketing, and there's definitely concepts in the book that don't require you to read the book, because as many of these books, it's got a lot of common sense things. So 40% did, the 60% did not. Nancy, you have it in your collection and checked it out. That's fine. If you want to post on it, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, I know sometimes getting into the collection, actually, we have an author that's coming that I mentioned on the page that I talked to, and they are coming to they're coming to a future book club meeting to talk with us. It's Robert Rose, who is one of the founders of Content Marketing Institute. But he's like, yeah, my book's coming out in September. So, hey, I'll come and join in October. And I was like, whoa, well, let's maybe do a few months after that to at least give people a shot of even getting it into their library if they want to use it from the library. So I'll be sending out reminders in August for anybody who wants to get it into the library to make sure that you add it and get it ordered. So I want to, so let's go through the book. Did anybody who read it have any initial thoughts? We can start there. Anybody who had a chance had any initial thoughts before we get rolling?
I thought I wouldn't like it, and I thought, I came to it thinking, well, it's going to be interesting, but this is not something for me. And it's really, I'm a 180. Like, I mean, I'm not 100% in on the digital declutter, but it has
Yeah.
really opened my eyes into my use of social media. I went on to the Facebook group for this group one day to double check the date, and I got stuck in the feeds for like 30 minutes before I was like, what am I even doing? Oh, I like closed out of it. I was like, getting out of here. And then I was like, oh, I didn't even do the thing that I meant to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was hilarious since it was a book for this group. And then I
Yeah.
was stuck in so I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I walked into the same way. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of these things and they're kind of like this. And haven't we heard this before? I mean, I was interested in reading the book. I mean, I thought it was interesting, but I was the same thing. I was super skeptical. I was like, I don't know. But boy, the more I got into it, I was like, man alive. Yeah, Nancy, you can do that in your off hours. Just get wrapped up and we'll talk about that for sure, about how it's easy to just kind of get wrapped up in other things. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, so let's go and let's just talk a little bit about the book. So for those who read it and remember, but if you hadn't, so it starts off with a lot about how social media, especially social media, um, and and really especially smartphones, are something that causes so much distraction. And there's so much, and it's not that it's just distracting, it's that it's actually engineered to be distracted, to be distracting. So they talk about how Mark Zuckerberg talked one time about how Facebook is, their mission is to bring people together and unite the world through all that. And it's a company. They want to make money. So the more attention they can get, the better. And there's this guy, his name is Tristan Harris, and he was on, I think it was 60, it was either 60 Minutes or CNN. I feel like it was 60 Minutes. But so he was kind of a whistleblower, and he was one that worked for Google. And he said that, these things are slot machines in our pockets. And and that these things are dangerous. And so I don't know if anybody who read it got a chance to see it, and we won't go through the whole thing, but so this Tristan Harris created this, and this is going to sound daunting. It's 144 slides about minimizing distraction. So it's still online. There's a website. I'll put it in the chat. So the website is minimizedistraction.com, and you can actually go through and look at it. And I'm going to share it and just share part of it. So yeah, I mean, and let me see if I can get it to work there. So sorry for making you all go crazy when you see this, but it flips really fast. And I'm not going to go through, like I said, the whole thing, but I do want to go to it to a certain point. So he says, I'm concerned about how we're making the world more distracted. His goal is to create a movement at Google to create a new design ethic that aims to minimize distraction. And he wants help. Distraction matters because time is all we have in life. Time is expanded and contracted when we're in flow versus distracted. And this even goes back to another book that we read, where they talked about traction versus distraction, which was kind of an interesting concept. More can happen in a single day traveling in a remote country than in months of your work life, or in 1 hour of dancing. But hours and hours can get lost, as we were just talking here, in your inbox and feeds that suck huge chunks of time away, weakening relationships, destroying kids' abilities to focus. And this is something that we'll talk about in a minute, but teens send 4,000 texts a month, once every 6 minutes. And this was from 2013. So it's certainly much, much more extreme now. Today, tech companies influence where all this attention goes. Never before in history, handful of designers, white men living in San Francisco, age 25 to 35, working at 3 companies, had so much impact. And I'm going to flip through a couple of these because I want to get to this. So in this thing, he talks, one of the things that was interesting, he talks about bad forecasting, which is, again, exactly, Anna and Nancy, what we were just talking about. It's like, oh, it won't take that long to do this. So, in the one, and this time in 2013, very popular to get a little notification when somebody tagged a photo of you and look at these buttons. But what are we really being asked? Is it want to see this photo of you, or is it, do you want to spend the next, interrupt what you're doing and spend the next 20 minutes on Facebook and um, share this article? And this, again, is super common. Or make 26 friends, spend 10 minutes reading this. Watch a related video. Don't sleep till 2 a.m. Don't sleep till 3 a.m. Feel sick tomorrow. So, and it is an interesting presentation. So I encourage you to take a look at it. And it's pretty neat. But he wrote this big, huge manifesto about that, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. So that's a big part of the first part of the book. And yeah, the one thing is the slot machines, and I think when you read that and you think about all the little things that we have to you pull down to refresh, like what, I mean, how much more could that be like a slot machine? And it's exactly like a slot machine. um and he talks about there, and in the book, Cal Newport talks about there are exceptions, like, having a deployed service member who you use WhatsApp to communicate with. But it's the same. Those are just exceptions. They don't disprove the rule. Hey, Lori. So they don't disprove the rule. They don't disprove the larger issue that this is a real serious problem. And then he goes on to talk about Henry David Thoreau's Walden, which I've never read. Have you guys read Walden? You're maybe more well read than I know. Mary, did you read Walden or no? No. So yeah, not since high school. Yeah, we didn't read it in high school, and I'm kind of sorry that we didn't. But now I kind of want to read it because he talks about Walden and how, Walden was something about being, and it made it feel like the kind of the what you hear about Walden is that it's being out in the woods, that it's being away from everything, and it's being kind of a hermit. But if you look at it really wasn't that remote. There were people there around. The pond was super popular. He was only a short walk from home. So mostly he went there to work out a new economics theory. But in the time, he talked about cost and opportunity cost. So, how do you apply that same ideal to time with people, and what kind of cost you have, what kind of opportunity cost? And then sort of one of the last things that I thought was interesting he talked about in the first part was the Amish. So when you're talking about a book about technology and digital distraction, certainly think about the Amish and, oh, they never use technology and they're so freed from everything. But it's really not true. The Amish do use technology. They don't reject it. They question what it does and they test it. And that kind of goes into his later theory of how to do that. So any thoughts about how that applies to maybe your own lives, or any thoughts about how some of those ideas might apply to the work that we do in marketing, from, we're causing distraction, or, what can we do to make the experience different? Any thoughts about that? Hey, Laurie.
I'd say it made me really wish I were in a position to truly take a break at least.
Yeah,
But of course, we have to be on social for work. I
sure.
assume all of
Yep,
us do, or most of us do,
it's
to
true.
some extent. And before this job, I was working as a journalist where it was even worse that way. So at
Yeah.
least now I can be like, all right, just dealing with library stuff. I don't have to pay attention to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But it, yeah.
Yeah, Nancy. No, I agree. And I think, and I think too, as we go through the book, there's a little more that will go into that, and how we can, and how how we can participate, and how, even when we're tied to those kind of things, what options we might have to do it a little differently. But yeah, any other thoughts about any of this stuff, the Walden or the Amish or slot machines or any of that stuff?
Well, I didn't read the book. I have
That's okay.
full disclosure, but I did watch. He had a like a 10-minute or 12-minute video on
Yep,
YouTube, so I watched that, and
that's
then I
great.
found another one that was all about the digital decluttering,
Yeah.
and it was a guy that was drawing. Like when
Yep.
you are in a meeting and someone draws everything. And I thought the same thing that Nancy did. It's like, okay, let's see. I do this for a living, post all this stuff. But I honestly, personally, don't use social media very much. I mean,
Really?
I very rarely
Yeah.
go on because I'm doing it for work. I don't really want to spend my time with my phone in my face when I'm at home. So, but the one thing that I loved was the digital slot machine. I never thought about it. And when you're refreshing even your email on your phone, you're constantly doing this. I thought, oh my God,
Yeah, it is.
that was like, holy smokes. That was like, I just never thought about it that way. So that I thought that was kind of like an awakening,
Yeah,
an epiphany for me. So I thought, ugh,
I
yikes, no
know.
wonder it's so addictive.
I know, right? Because it's that same motion.
Mm,
And in that PowerPoint that we looked at, there are some slides that talk about how it's the same. I mean, it's like, I guess it's obvious now when you think about it, but at first doesn't, you don't really think about that. That's what
right.
people are getting. They're getting that little rush from pulling that arm or now these days hitting a button. It's not really pulling an
Right.
arm, um but yeah, so it's an interesting thing, and that's what he was talking about. He said, these are things that you're looking at to get these little hits, and then there's some more as they get there. Alicia tried to get off Facebook before COVID. Yeah, that was maybe not the best time. That was a big. This book actually came out in 2019, which is interesting. It came out not too long before COVID. I guess long enough that his experiments didn't interfere with it. But now you're off it and you don't really miss it, and that's what he talks about in the book as we get into the declutter. YouTube is made to be addictive. It's made with an algorithm, just like any of them, to send you to another, to send you to the next video and send you down that next path. And, there are probably useful things for it, but it definitely is going to get you watching and watching more videos. So YouTube is a good search engine, though, and you can find a lot of information on it. Maybe you just need to be careful. But the next thing he talks about, he starts to talk about spending time alone, and that becomes a really big theme throughout the book. And one thing that was interesting in there's this one study of this iGen is the name that this one social science researcher talks for anybody that's born between 95 and 2012. So I don't know if anybody here was born in that range between 95 and 2012, but but they talk about how anybody born in that time, if you think about when the iPhone came out and when smartphones really hit, which was around 2012, that's going to be right in their teens, and that's going to be when people are going to really change their behaviors and start to spend so much time online. And what they found was that there was, and this was from, I guess, psychologists and psychiatrists across the country that worked with young people, was that you can see an absolute spike in teen anxiety right around the time that the iPhone came out, because it was a huge difference in behavior, and it was a huge thing in how people were interacting. And before then, the other issues that maybe we kind of grew up with or saw earlier of bad things. I mean, eating disorders and suicide and other concerns that people had were still big, but then there was this huge spike in anxiety. So, and a lot of it is because from that point on, people really especially those that grew up right at that time, they issued solitude. So they didn't, they were never alone. They never had any alone time. And that is a big, big theme throughout the book, is about the loss of solitude. And Nancy's so grateful it wasn't around in adolescence and young adulthood. I know, but now is anybody else though, so when I looked back to think about growing up and even with some of the older technologies I talked about, not social, but I was always listening to music in headphones and and as these technologies came out, I just felt myself get sucked more and more into this, and to now where I walk around with these headphones. They're like they're bone conductive, so they don't go in your ears, so you can still kind of hear what's going on around you. But I walk around with those all the time, and I feel like I am just never alone. And it was a real awakening for me in this book about that. And Mary passed notes during class. Yes, original social media. Yes, pen and paper. Yeah. So yeah, that was what it was. But anybody else have any experiences like that where you feel like you're foregoing solitude, or then the other thing is when you do take those moments, that we're all inundated with messages and we're all inundated with phones and we're carrying our phones around, and but when you do take those breaks, what does that feel like? Does anybody have want to share any experiences like that?
There's my grandmother has a house up in the mountains, Allegheny Mountains. It's actually where my mom and her sister grew up. And it's still in the family. And the funny thing is, as a kid, I hated it because there was nothing to do other than swim in the Allegheny River that was right there, or watch a railroad train come by. I even got to ride in a caboose once.
Oh, that's
we all
bad.
had to hide because they weren't insured to have passengers. But at that time, it was like, yeah, that part was fun. But most everything, we just did board games and puzzles and things like that. Right. But it was like, as a kid, it would just drive you crazy. I had an older sister who had a friend there that was the same age. I didn't have anybody my age. So it was really tough. And nobody had bike racks that you could take your bike. I'd have been riding my bike everywhere, which is what I did at home. Yeah. So, but now I go there and I just love the quiet.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And my parents did too, but they were both teachers, so understand. Yeah. They were glad to have some quiet too. And they would read and nap, and we'd look at them like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding," But but you know what? Now, obviously, at this end of my life, I'm looking at it. I love the solitude. I really do, because especially more now that we're hit in so many directions with news and social media, everything, email, spam. My gosh, I've never gotten so many robocalls in my life as I have in the last even a couple months, even though I'm on the do not call list.
Yeah, that didn't do much.
Yeah, that works not. But Verizon will do it for you for $5 a month.
Hey, that's not bad.
But it just is like, but my take too has always been with us, doing marketing for the library. Mm-hmm. When is it too much? When is enough? I don't typically send a newsletter out unless I have news to send out. Typically was once a month, so that wasn't too bad. But here's the thing, I'll let you in a secret. The Allegheny County Law Library was partnered with Duquesne University. That's going to end at the end of this week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so our partnership, they're working on it. They're working with the county with Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And they have been awesome. They're absolutely awesome. They're trying to make sure everything is as seamless as possible. But the funny thing is, and I've been watching this, and then I'll shut up, but I thought that's good. The coolest thing. We have not been allowed to post anything. Mm-hmm. because
Yeah.
nothing is definitive yet, okay,
Sure.
on either side. So I haven't posted anything, but boy, they looking at our Facebook page saying, okay, maybe I'll see something now. And I've gotten more hits in my Facebook, or not mine, but the library's Facebook page, because it's like, maybe, what do we hear? You know, what's going on? And it's like, I still can't tell you.
It's very interesting.
But it
Yes,
was,
it's
you
very
know, it's kind of been
interesting.
my experiment just to see, you know, if we have more people contacting simply because they want to know what's going on. And it's like, I'm not telling.
That's right. Yeah. What is this
I'm not
news that's
allowed to tell.
coming?
They don't know that, but it's kind of intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is the Allegheny County Law Library.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to know when news is happening, what kind of things are going on, and what kind of things are going around. So yeah, very interesting. So yeah, hopefully that works out well. So the next chapter was a chapter that had a lot of stuff in it. And sorry if you came a little late, we did talk about who had read the book and who hadn't. We were about 50-ish. So if you'd read the book, please chime in anytime. But the next one was the real interesting chapter. I think it was kind of the real meat of the book. The next two is the don't click like chapter. So you know, and there was a whole big thing in this chapter about the like button for Facebook, which definitely is something that that was developed to add more engagement, but in a very casual way that, again, really provides more distraction, and it's really not as engaging as it might purport to be. And a couple of things in this chapter that were kind of that, you know, struck me as interesting were there was one thing about people retreating to digital means of communication. And I don't know how your libraries are, but I do feel this happens in our library. We do have people that will, and this is in all areas of the library, not you know, not public service, but everywhere. People will retreat to email because they're terrified of unstructured conversation, because we've become so used to structured conversation with social media. It's become, you know, so much of a, you know, reply and like and those kind of things culture. So I just thought that was a pretty interesting observation, that people will retreat to email instead of having calls, or instead of calling people or talking people to face. And do you all encounter that with, you know, people you work with or staff, that they would rather do an email than you know, than just walk down the hall and talk to somebody or pick up the phone, even if they're not getting the answers that they need?
Yes, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So they're like,
and
I'm
it's
not getting an
amazing
answer.
to me too what people will post on social media.
Sure.
It's like, huh? I mean, it just blows my mind. And I mean, at other jobs, when I've had a staff and, you know, ask, you know, you need to get something done. And I mean, this has been going on for years. It isn't like a new thing. Did you call them?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I sent an email. Did you
I
call them?
I know.
Did you call them?
Yeah.
Call them.
Yeah. If it's that important, yeah, call them makes sense.
Me
Yes.
crazy. Get on the phone and call. But
and
my
Tammy,
phone never rings. Never.
Yeah.
Never rings.
Not really.
Like once a month, maybe.
Yeah. It's rare. It's rare because we even have we even use Microsoft Teams now. So now we have that chat feature. So we're all chatting now instead of talking. But like Tammy, you point out something good though, you know, that is sometimes it's like, you know, I feel like I'm interrupting them. So is there anything, you know, so talk about that for a minute, if you have anything to say about that.
Oh, I don't have my mute on. That's fine.
There you
go. Just if it's somebody I don't know, because our college has got 4 main campuses plus the district office plus the IT building plus 9 satellites, and so you can't know everybody. And so if my director tells me, well, this so-and-so is the one who handles this, and it's like, I look them up and I'm going, I'm not going to call the dean of liberal arts on another campus and expect him to answer the phone call and tell me an answer to some piddly little thing. True, and so, you know, I have to so there's a lot of people, because I don't know them, and what I need is not urgent, and you just kind of go, yeah, I wait for them to have time to make room for this question out of the blue.
Yeah, no, it can make sense. And, something I've done, Tammy, in those situations, if I do think that an email is going to get buried and lost and not really happen, because what happens, right?
Yeah.
I will schedule short meetings with people, maybe that's something, schedule a short meeting. I mean, I know it can be daunting, and I know sometimes we think like, well, who am I? But you're important, Tammy. You're important enough to get those answers. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's and but I know what you mean. Like some cases, maybe there are some things that are built for email, but I think there's sometimes so we've got a lot going on in the chat, which is great. Nancy, Slack. So you were in a job, Nancy, where you had Slack, and Slack is one that again became it still is. Just like a Teams or anything, it's a big kind of interpersonal communication adjustment that everybody does that. And Lori, how many email boxes and texting when the phone call can be done in 2 minutes. So that's you can make some adjustments, but it's just interesting how they're talking about this. So when it comes to marketing, so Alicia has a question. When it comes to marketing, is it our responsibility to help others minimize social media? This is really interesting, Alicia. Or not participate in the clutter, or is it our responsibility to reach as many of them through as many avenues as possible? This is a great thing. I'd love to hear the group's thoughts on this. So, should we be the ones that are minimizing social media, or or how should we be reaching out to our patrons? And is maybe this not the thing for us? What does anybody think?
I think it still has a place, definitely.
Sure.
If nothing else, you can, there's an event, it's coming up, you give them the information, whatever. And Chris, actually, I love the fact that you do give me a reminder, because I almost forgot about it today.
That's okay.
Because Carnegie Library's here today. We're filling out.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
The thing is, I think that we do have a responsibility, not just passive, but the other part of it is after a while, I think people tune you out. Just like advertising.
True.
You get too many advertisements on the same thing. So
yeah. And it makes
where's
it tough.
that balance?
Yeah. It makes it tough inside the social media platforms themselves, because they're also layering on a lot of their own advertising in the timeline.
Twitter.
Yeah,
like
it's tough. So anybody else have thoughts about should we be reaching what is our responsibility to social media?
I think the quality over quantity.
Oh, Nancy,
with social media is a good approach, because I think, I was on some webinar a while back where the social media marketing expert said that Facebook and Instagram were actually pushing down businesses that posted more than twice a week, because she was like, they don't want you to spam your customers. And it's like, no, they want you to pay them.
They want you to buy the advertising time.
Yeah. Yes. But either way, I think making sure that your posts are, have useful information, something, not just like a joke or a meme or a cartoon, as much as that could get eyeballs. It's like, what does getting you that eyeballs do for either your patron or your library?
Yep. I think that's good. Anna, you had something to add too?
Yes, similarly, we've been trying to use social media marketing, like to do marketing for programs that shares valuable information that you would learn from the program in the social media posts. So it's both a promotion and an education. Even if people don't come to the program, they're learning something from your kind of mini informative social media post. But I was reflecting on that after listening to this book, because I was thinking, but then we're just participating in the, the social media even if it is informative, it's still just a part of the whole time use. And then I also want to say that the don't click like was just shocking, because we want people to click like, because we're going to get more engagement. We're going to get more views if people are clicking like. The more comments we can get, the more hashtags they click on, or website links or likes. We want them to engage. And so we're including content in our posts to encourage that interaction, that I'm going to stop doing.
No, right. But I think so too. And the thing that I worry about, and with the don't click like on our own sides, is the less likes we get, and the less it's going to get shown, like the less, because Facebook is calling those interactions for us. Right. So, it's interesting how we're going to show up, and it's tricky. I thought about the same thing, and that was it. It was like, well, I want people to, I made one post in our group and I said, please don't click like, but then I'm gonna look back and see like how many people actually even saw that post, because nobody was clicking like. So it's it's an interesting thing. And Alicia, I think that was a great question, and I think I mean, if I can volunteer something there, it would be that, I would think that we could, use social media to advertise things and to drop things in. But, considering all the noise on there, and how people are using it, and how people maybe, might be, missing things that we have, maybe it's driving people to things like email and things that are more controlled conversations, getting off of the rented land, and getting to email, and even in our little poll that we talked about before we did here, we had, more people getting information about this particular club by email than by Facebook. So, but yeah, Tammy, electronic media driven promotions have to be applicable college-wide. So special events rarely advertised outside of print. Oh, that's interesting. On campus, our challenge is, how do we reach students? And this is the big challenge. How do we reach anybody who doesn't see our print advertising? How do we reach other people? And Nancy suggests posting to groups, other smaller subsets. Is that something you've tried, Tammy?
No, because it's very fuzzy who owns those. And so we don't want to get scolded for overstepping, because there are certain Facebook things that are already in existence with the college branding. And so we have to follow the college branding, and it gets too difficult. And so fortunately, media is part of our learning commons. So we do control the CCTVs on campus, so we can put campus advertising up, but outside of our campus itself, we have no reach, and the campuses run their own special programs. So it's really a challenge. We need some kind of an opt-in communication version that and I don't know if we would be permitted to do that.
I don't, so there was, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, just because it's a public institution, and so I'm not sure we are even permitted to gather email addresses voluntarily for being on the library contact. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to share something. I'll try and share something either in the follow-up email or on the group with this. There's a guy who started the Morning Brew. If you know what Morning Brew is, it's a newsletter. It's a business newsletter, but it's actually really good. It's a real cosmopolitan newsletter. And the way that they talked about building what they did is they went into classrooms. What they did is they got approval from professors for them to go in and say, hey, we have this thing, it's called Morning Brew, and we want to get you to sign up. And they had one guy talking about what the thing was, and the other was walking around the class, physically getting people's email addresses. And that was how they built big email lists. So, I mean, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, you certainly have to be careful about overstepping bounds, but, you know, if you're going to go to classrooms, and maybe you do now, I don't know, you know, if you're going to go to classrooms and talk about the library, you know, bring somebody along with a clipboard, and maybe that's an opportunity to get some people to give their email addresses, and then, you know, and then you can build an email address from there. But yeah, ask students how they'd like to be communicated with, and start with your local group, and do some of those. Yeah. So great ideas. Yeah, I know, Tammy, it's not easy. It's not easy for any of us in any library to reach people that are not coming into the library. It's like the huge challenge. And so we look to these digital tools. Just launched first email newsletters for 5 branches, went with opt-in rather than send everybody and make them opt out. How did that go, Nancy? How did that go with you? Did you get a good opt-in rate?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell, you know, since we're not selling anything, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So yeah, I think I've been pleasantly surprised with how many signups we've gotten. And it's also this company Vega Promote. I don't know if any of you have dealt with them.
We're looking at it now.
Yeah. And they don't have some things like URL open in browser, like link thing, but they say that's coming.
Yep.
Like so it feels a little bit like we're a beta maybe, but that's okay. You know, we're small, so it's okay.
We have constant contact. The only problem is the more people you have,
the more
they charge you.
Right.
That can be a problem. But back up just a second. I thought of something when Anna was talking about social media. I have liked for my own stuff. I'll like something or I love something so that it does get more exposure. Maybe we need to, instead of doing it ourselves, I'm going to find a friend.
That's a way.
And have her like the post for Allegheny County Law Library. And then maybe that will generate more people looking at it. So
it's an interesting experiment.
Maybe you can think of that. And I thought, I could maybe do that.
You can ask your staff to do that too. I've done that. You know, get your staff to be engaged in social media and get them to like your stuff. I do that all the time, and it kind of catches on. So
we only have 2 other staff members.
That's enough.
Well,
but 2 more than 0.
You're right. We only need 1. But even so, if I could get some, actually because we weren't sure if we were going to be hired or not, and even that's still a little bit up in the air, a little bit. I had a person that came in pro se that started a change.org petition to help us retain our jobs.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Transition. And it wasn't adversarial. It was just saying, hey, look, these guys know what they're doing. There are 3 people there that really know what they're doing. I've been here for 15 years. I hope I do. And so she did that, but I think we've generated more people looking at our Facebook because of the change.org.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
That was an unexpected boost to whatever else was going on too.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and Nancy down in the Keys, very Facebook oriented. So there's a lot of community groups. So yeah, that can make a big difference. And we've done that too in public library. We look sometimes at some of these other groups, and often, kind of like you're saying, Mary, it's more like, you know, the staff start posting in these community groups about things. And, you know, I'm on my little neighborhood group and I'm like, oh, that's somebody that works at the library. He's posting about the library. How cool. So yeah, it's pretty neat. We do have a pretty good network. So, you know, so it goes through a lot more about Facebook and you know, the likes and how there's studies that say, there were some studies that say that, you know, oh yeah, Facebook makes you feel better. It makes you feel more connected. But then there was kind of a lot more research that said the more social media connected, the more lonely you are. And, you know, some of his advice is, as you go through this declutter, which is in the next chapter, you know, it's okay to let some of those weak ties go. And this was where I think, Alicia, I was thinking about your same thing. Like, how does it relate to marketing? Do we reduce our marketing on Facebook? So you asked the perfect question. The next chapter goes into the actual digital declutter, and for what it's worth, I am planning to do this next month. So it's 30 days and it's with no optional technology. So you look through anything that you have that would be an optional use of technology. So like Nancy, you were saying, we have to do it for work. So if it's something for work, this is not an excuse to get out of doing it for work. So you can't say, I'm not going to look at my email for the next month because I'm doing this digital declutter. So if it's anything that's going to negatively impact your personal or professional life, then that's something that not necessarily would be optional. Yes, I cannot play Wordle. I know, and I play it every day. I can't do the New York Times crossword or the spelling bee or any of those other things. So, unless there's Wordle in the paper, and then
you can do the New York Times crossword in the paper.
I can do
Chris,
and that's what I'm planning.
Let's get back to the old style.
I am going to
paper and pencil.
I'm going to go downstairs and get a paper, and I am going to do some paper crossword, and I'm looking forward to it. So, but yeah, so anything that's going to not negatively, which even means like if you and your partner, spouse, whomever, watchdog, yeah, if you watch television together and that's part of your time and something you choose to do, that's not necessarily like an optional technology that's not going to affect your personal life. You don't want to just shut everything out. And actually, it's interesting when you go through and you see this, he talks about a lot of people who make rules like, well, I'm only going to stream media if I'm with somebody. So, maybe that's with the YouTube, maybe it's only I'm going to watch YouTube. Yeah, no YouTube, Alicia, but maybe it's I'll watch YouTube if I'm watching with a friend or, somebody that I can discuss things with. But yeah, so, it's talking about using that time. And I have a short video, but I don't think we have time for it. I'll share it. I'll share the link. It's one of the videos from, you may have watched it, Mary. It's one of the videos that he did. And it was somebody who was talking about, why do I keep failing at the digital declutter? And his main thing was because you're looking at it like a detox. You're not looking at it as a declutter. That's the video. But so it's not about just getting rid of things and just muscling through it. Like that's his big message. It's not about just powering through for the month. Like, anytime that you would be using your phone, just sitting there and thinking, I'm not using my phone. I'm not using my phone. I'm not using my phone. I'm not going to use my phone. It's taking that time and doing some things that are deeper work or, he even talks about like take an online course. It's something that's more valuable than just, absent-minded scrolling or doom scrolling or whatever you want to say. So it's a declutter. And if you think of it as a detox, like I'm going to do this for 30 days and then I'm just going to turn everything back on, then you're probably not going to be successful. And it's pretty daunting, but I've already started to do kind of some light versions of it. I think the only social media I still have on my phone right now is Instagram. And that's because we've been pretty, engaged on Instagram on a very regular basis with talking with our customers and sharing their stories in our story. So I may take that off, but the other thing is you can do things like, even if it's for work, maybe you just schedule an hour a day when you're going to do that. So it's like dieting. It's like anything. It's just about planning. So, he goes into the declutter and then he talks more about adding things back. And there's little rules in there about, here's the rules for adding back. You can add things back if they serve something you deeply value. They're the best way to use technology to serve this value. And they have some sort of a procedure that specifies when and how you're going to use it. So, and this is somebody's paraphrasing of it. So it's, you know, a little more involved in his own things, or a little more maybe drawn out. But yeah, so it'll be an interesting experiment. Yeah, you want to yeah find out what you want to fill your time with stuff before the declutter, Anna. Yeah. Is anybody else planning on doing this? Anybody else planning on doing any level of this? Maybe not the whole thing, but part. Anybody else going to give it a shot, or anybody have any thoughts about or anxieties about it?
I definitely feel like I'm coming to it. Like
Yeah.
the more I think about it, the more I like wake up first thing in the morning and I'm on Instagram before I'm even like out of bed. And that's like, now I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I feel like the more that happens, like this awareness is really leading me to and I was thinking there's so many things on my like for some time list, and I'm sure that if I do the declutter, it'll be now, not like I just don't have any time. Like
I'd say, yeah, same, Anna. I think that's the same thing that I'm thinking of. There's a lot of things that I'm like, boy, you know, for a while, I was into doing jigsaw puzzles, and which is not, super big work, but I don't know, it's very interesting, and I enjoyed it, and something but there's also, there's also, things that I would like to work on for this club, and things that I would like to work on for other things, and that I just kind of get lost in this this thing. So yes, Mary, I certainly will let you know how it goes. So I'll be right in it when we get our next book club meeting. So I'll be right near the end. But yeah, so which I'm anxious, because I love listening to books, but I'm going to be reading a paper book for the next month. So, but hopefully reading some more. So, I mean, there's a couple things that kind of go down, through the end of the book. Again, a lot about solitude, and really the value of solitude. And, and he actually says something in the book, so the author, if you hadn't read the book, or, hadn't seen much about him, he is one who does not have social media accounts, and hasn't had social media accounts. And so two things there. First of all, people criticize him and say, how can you write about this? And if you don't have a social media account, how can you write about this? The other thing is, when people tell him, well, why would I use social media? And he says, well, you never know. Someday you might find something useful. And to me, that spoke a lot to marketing, or a bit to marketing, because that's the same idea of like, well, we'll throw all this information out and maybe somebody will find it useful, especially with libraries, because we have so many things. It's like, well, maybe somebody's going to find it. How could not anybody find this useful? But, again, it's really more about targeting that message and getting to the right people, and, not just kind of exposing yourself to a big flood of messages, hoping that you're just going to hit something. So, Nancy, yes, I envy people too. I know people who do that, and I'm interested to see what that's going to be like. So, and Tammy, stop playing on the phone after dinner. Yeah, reading a print book, it makes you sleep better. You're not looking at that screen. You're not, and even though you might think that screen is there with just the book, boy, there's still always distractions. There's always a little something popping up or something. So, yeah, so. So we're right near the end. We just got a few minutes left. Any last words from anybody about this? We've just got, maybe a minute left for somebody to drop something in, and then we'll do a book.
I actually started doing jigsaws again, partly because I went to the doctor's office and they had one out.
Yeah.
Actually, and the last time I went to Carnegie Library, the main branch, they had one there, and there was an older woman there working on it. There's something satisfying about that snap when it is
very.
And that's what I mean when I said I use it to focus on issues, because it's kind of a mindless thing that you're doing, kind of sort of, and it's like, oh, I may come up with another, my ideas are running in the background. So I kind of use it for that. And at home, I do some games. I do change after a while, I get bored with one, I might do another one. But it's my dog and me in bed. Yeah. And I have music playing softly. So it's kind of like, and it does kind of, chill me out. And I've fallen asleep playing a game, and I'm thinking, So I think that part works.
Yeah, it could. It could.
So I don't know that I want to get rid of it, but if it interferes with me getting ready in the morning, absolutely. That's
right. If it interferes with other parts of your life, then it's, you know, and it's interfering with professional and personal. And you know, it's interesting how
Makes
it quickly
sense.
gets in, like Anna said
yeah.
in the beginning, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I went to this, you know, this Facebook group that about this book club, and I got lost in it for 30 minutes. So but yeah, not look at YouTube. Yeah, Alicia, maybe check out that YouTube. But okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nancy, pick a number between 1 and 8, please. 7. Okay, 7 is Anna. So Anna, you win a copy of next month's book. It is Creating Superfans by Brittany. I don't have the I don't have God. See, my mind is so scattered. But I've actually been talking to the author. She's not going to be able to come to the meeting if we still have it on that day, which I think we're still planned to do. But she is going to do something to participate a little bit. She's really excited. Brittany Hodak, she's really excited about being part of it. She's got some really cool things about libraries that she likes. So it should be pretty cool. And so what I'm going to ask people, what I'm going to ask you all to do, and I'll send this out in an email during the month, is, you know, what are some questions that, you know, that you might be interested in somebody like Brittany answering for us. So, you know, see what her approach is to some of these same questions we talked about today. So thank you all so much. I will be sending out an email survey. If you can take that and let me know what you thought of this, that would be awesome. It's really great to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. And emails going to Facebook email. Tammy, I actually have an email list that's separate. So if you go to the Library Marketing Book Club .org website, that's where you can sign up. And and if you're not getting emails there, that's where it is. But I'll send it to you on Facebook so you can get the link and we can talk on Facebook and we can get you signed up. So yeah, you don't want to miss them. But thank you all so much, and hope you had a good time. And thanks, Anna. Good luck with yours too. And I will talk to you all soon. Have a great month. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.